and then we will hear from JoAnn Fleming, our director. The last few times I've been up here, I've teased y'all, said, she hasn't been able to be here because she's out partying late and just, too much stuff going on her plate. She's given me a hard time about that, but, got to give her a hard time. First off, I want to welcome, I see a lot of new faces, and that could be just because I can't always be here, but welcome to those that are new and those that have made it back to us. Just glad to have you guys. Y'all give them a hand. Thank y'all for coming out. If you wouldn't mind, we do have an email list over here if you want to keep up to date about what's going on, when we're having the meetings, and when we have special meetings. Go ahead and sign up on that email list. It's back on the table as you come in there or go out. So give us your email and we'll try to keep you up to date as what's going on. A couple of things I want to cover real quick. One, last Saturday we had our Champions of Freedom banquet, and I want to give a big hand of applause to everybody that helped with that. That was a huge success. So y'all, thank y'all very much for all that y'all did there. And there was a lot of volunteers that got out and did stuff and worked behind the scenes. A lot of people that put effort into this. Y'all give them a hand for their work there. Heard a lot of good reports about that. I think everybody seemed to enjoy the evening. We've just had a lot of people pouring in. They were just excited to see where there's actually a group. We heard a lot of people that were here for the first time out of state. They were at that dinner, and they were blown away at the quality of some of the legislators that we have here in this area, and hearing Pastor Cruz talk about his vision for where we can take this country, where we can take this state. It was very refreshing. Sometimes we get into the thick of this, and we have to step back and look and go, you know what, we are making a difference. And so it was a very successful dinner in our eyes, and we thoroughly enjoyed it and appreciate all the effort that everybody put into that. Thank you guys. All right, next couple meetings. We have 3 meetings left this year. So what we're going to do, we're going to skip over the end of December because of Christmas and the holidays and whatnot. But the next 3 meetings will be on these dates. It'll be next meeting will be the 21st of this month. Then we have one on December the 5th. And on December the 5th, we're going to have Matt Schaefer, our state rep, coming in. He's going to be telling us about the upcoming legislative session. So you'll definitely want to put that on your calendar and plan on being here. And then the last meeting of the year will be on, I didn't write it down, December 12th? 12th, December 12th, there we go. So that's the next upcoming meetings that we've got going on. Last meeting of the year is December 12th, and then we'll take a break through, let you guys spend some time with your family and enjoy the Christmas time. Speaking of that 47, everybody thinks, well, maybe that's the amount of Democrats that are left in the Senate. No, 47 days till Christmas, guys. So that breaks down to 6 Fridays left. It's flying in really fast. So looking forward to that. I don't have any other things to cover, guys. We're gonna again, I will cover this. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of stuff coming up or going on, but catch your breath, yes, but don't quit. Keep on doing what we're doing. Keep on praying, most of all, and praying that the Lord would give wisdom and guidance to those men and women that have been elected, and that they would not waste the opportunity that we have here. So with that, y'all give a hand of applause to our director, JoAnn. She's going to come up and share a few things with us.
Thank you. Michael Quinn just drove in. I found him. Well, hello, Grassroots.
Hello, JoAnn.
It's good to be here with you all today. And yes, I know James has been telling y'all that I've not been here lately because I've been too tired from partying. Y'all know me better than that. Betty wanted me to tell you all that we still have some of the DVDs, We Ride to DC by Dennis Michael Lynch. That is about the border issues and the big issues in the United States. So if you would like to give a little contribution to Grassroots America, you can get one of those DVDs from Betty. I want to recognize a friend, a longtime friend of Grassroots is here today, Mr. Jason Wright. Representing Senator Cruz today, and I thought I saw Lou Ellen. Is Lou Ellen still in the room? There's Lou Ellen. She's getting a call. She's representing Senator Cornyn. She's here on behalf of Senator Cornyn today. I want to say thank you to all of you who worked so hard you guys up there in the bird's nest, crow's nest, whatever. This is getting a lot of feedback, so we want it to sound good when MQS gets up here. Thank you. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for your hard work in the elections, and for those of you who supported us in the dinner, thank you so much. I want to thank all of our candidates who worked so very, very hard. And, sometimes we're called to do a thing, and we don't sometimes know the reason we were to do it. Sometimes we just don't quite make it across the finish line, and we're not victorious every time. But I do believe that we had some really excellent candidates. Okay, is that better? Okay, all right. Well, it's still a lot of feedback, guys. Anyway, so I appreciate all the things that you all have done. I was in Houston on Tuesday night. I told Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, that the only reason I would go through Houston traffic, particularly in the rain, let me tell you, that is a nerve-wracking experience, and you all know that I travel all over the state, but there's no traffic like Houston traffic. So, guys, I don't sing. Was this a joke? What joke? James, did you do this on purpose today just to annoy the old woman? Very funny. Anyway, in Houston for Dan Patrick's celebration, and it was a great one. I will tell you all that, like I tell the groups across the state, sometimes whenever I go to speak to groups, I tell them right off the reel, I'm sort of designated, and Michael shares this with me, we're kind of designated to be the skunks at the party sometimes. Because everybody's going, rah, rah, all the Republicans won and the Republicans are in charge. Well, Michael and I remember we've read this book before. We've been here before. And where did we end up? More big government. So I will tell you, friends, that our work is cut out for us because it's still way too many big government Republicans in office. And we're going to be fighting those just like we do the big government Democrats. That's just what we do. Somebody's got to tell the truth about it. So, if you're excited because the Republicans, are in office, you know what, I am too, because it was important to beat the Democrats. But we still have to beat back the big government, free spending, freedom grabbing, progressive Republicans, and we'll just keep doing that. We're going to do that in Austin. And for all of you who think, I've had a lot of people go, JoAnn, you're going to get to have some rest now. Well, actually, yesterday morning, I had my coffee without answering the phone. And I had a big stack of, this is the time of year where everybody that you've ever been on the mailing list, you get a Christmas catalog. So I actually sat there and I flipped through all that nonsense and threw it in the trash so I wouldn't have to do it later. Drinking my coffee, kind of watching Fox News and kind of, flipping through the channels a little bit. Then I got back to work yesterday afternoon. But I will tell you this, we are getting ready now for the next legislative session. Big session for conservatives. Now we believe that we have elected some constitutional conservatives to office down there. We're going to see how well they behave. We're going to see if what they ran on is actually how they do. So we'll be there to hold them accountable. As I tell you guys, every time I see you, you're the best looking group in the state. And I love you very much. And I want you to hang in there with Grassroots America. I can't do this without all of you. I wouldn't want to do it without all of you, okay? But like I've told you before, even if you don't show up, I'm still going to do what I do, but I'd rather do it with you. So now I'm going to introduce our speaker today, Michael Quinn Sullivan. Michael's a good friend of mine. I think I heard him say yesterday on a conference call that he went deer hunting with your truck. Did you? Oh, Michael, I've done that before in a Cadillac. So not fun. Anyway, Michael Quinn Sullivan is the president of Empower Texans and Texans for Fiscal Responsibility. And Michael is also a partner of mine in Life, Liberty, and Property Tour. Michael Quinn Sullivan is down in Austin and across the state holding elected officials accountable, particularly leadership, and they don't like it much. So I can tell you that all the conservative grassroots groups are going to come under fire from the big government people, the progressives, the establishment types in Austin, and they're sending their ethics watchdogs after us. Guess what? We're not going to stop what we're doing. So we're probably going to be in for some big battles, but I could not be happier than to be in the battle with my good friend Michael Quinn Sullivan. Michael?
Thank you, JoAnn. Well, thank you all for letting me be with you today. I think y'all must have really upset, the scheduling gods that you had to hear me this past weekend and now today. I mean, that's people earn a medal for that or something. But I appreciate the chance to be here and to chat a little bit about the election results and kind of give you at least our view of what's coming ahead. As JoAnn noted, you will forgive my tardiness. I'm driving a rent vehicle because a deer decided that it wanted to commit suicide by F-150 earlier in the week. And as I noted, my F-150 is reparable. The deer, on the other hand, not so much. I was chastised by the staff for not having, thrown it in the back of my pickup and brought it in for venison burgers or something, but just roadkill just stopped appealing to me at some point or other in my life. And then speaking of roadkill, thank goodness we never have to mention the name again of that person who only got 38.7% of the vote. She is gone. A couple quick takeaways just from looking at the results. We're talking about the stuff that matters. One, we were all told to be scared of battleground Texas. We were all told that this is the force. Lots of people raised lots of money around battleground Texas. We were, JoAnn and I think both, were kind of the skunks at the party, as she said earlier, saying, I don't know. Let's see, you've got a guy from Chicago coming to Texas who hates Texas to sell Texans on buying the Obama brand, where Texans said, well, I want the Obama brand. I didn't see the strategic, I couldn't see the path to victory there. And as it turned out, I hope they keep doing what they did. I don't want them to leave now. I want them to stay. This is an outfit that managed to spend millions and millions and millions on Wendy Davis, and yet she got functionally no more votes than a guy named Jim Hogan, who was the Ag Commission candidate for the Democratic Party, who spent no money. He didn't campaign. He didn't even go to his own party's convention. That's how little he did. And yet he and Wendy Davis got pretty much the same thing. So congratulations to Battleground Texas. Congratulations to all of you nice leftists in New York and in Los Angeles. I'm glad you spent your money so well. Please keep doing that. If they do it one more time, we might have 7 Democrats left in the state of Texas. The map that has been going around of looking at how the counties voted is very instructive. Democrats got 10 fewer counties this time than in 2010. 10 fewer counties. So remember all the hoopla. And those are counties, that's not Smith County. Y'all weren't Democrats 4 years ago. Okay. Those are the counties and the places where we were told, you gotta have a squishy Republican, or else that county just won't go for you. It's down in South Texas. Hispanics will never vote for Republicans. And yet those are the very counties that flipped. Those are the very counties that moved to the Republican column. Now, Republican doesn't always mean conservative, but sometimes it does. And certainly, I think in the case of our statewide ticket, it clearly meant that. Voters who had not had the opportunity to see what a full, solid, well-developed conservative statewide ticket finally got to see one. And they compared that to the other team's ticket and went, ew, gross. So I think the challenge, though, for each one of us as citizens, as the people in charge, is to make sure now that our governor, our lieutenant governor, our comptroller, our attorney general, our ag commissioner, our railroad commissioner, our land commissioner, all of them know that they better darn well deliver on what they promised, or else those counties will say, you know, there's no difference, may as well be comfortable with where we were, rather than, you know, this new thing we tried to do. I think it's now incumbent on those members, on those elected officials, to deliver on their promises, perhaps even more so for the sake of those parts of the state than for any other. But for them to do that is going to require each one of us demanding it. Each one of us are going to have to step up our game. You know, I'm embarrassed to hear that JoAnn got to have a morning without being on the phone and drink her coffee. You know, that's horrible. Maybe once a week is okay. You and I should be working a lot harder starting today than we were all fall. You and I have got to be a lot more aggressive in the governing of our state. We as conservatives have for far too long said, oh, I'm going to go find me a good leader, I'm going to hire him, I'm going to put him in office. And yeah, I mean, you guys have done a pretty good job, you know, Matt Schaefer, and hopefully you'll have better luck the next time you go hiring a state senator. But it's not sufficient, though, to simply hire well. It's, you know, you're not a good manager, you're not a good employer if all you do is hire well. As the folks in charge, you and I have to manage well as well. You know, there are all sorts of great businesses that have hired the most talented people, and yet the business implodes within a year because they weren't well managed. And I think that's where the conservative movement often is. You know, we hire someone who talks a good game and might even believe it, but then you and I walk away. We go back to managing our business, playing with our kids and grandkids, going on a trip, watching American Idol, whatever we do. And while we walk away, the other team doesn't. It's why we live in a state where almost 2/3 of the public has voted for the conservative. The voting public, 1/3 has voted for the liberal. In the Texas House, 2/3 functionally of the Texas House claim to be conservatives. Functionally, 2/3 of the Senate claims to be conservatives. And yet, we have seen for multiple legislative sessions, we have watched very milquetoast, I would argue, conservative reforms, very easy 60, 70, 80% issues across the board reforms languish and die, while leftist legislation moves forward. Mark Jones, professor of political science at Rice University, did a study of the legislation that moved in the last session. And the report that he did was called Red State, Purple Legislation. And he made the point that most of the legislation that moved out was Democrat legislation. In fact, Democrats, according to hardhatters.com, 51% of the legislation that passed in the Texas House that ended up going to the governor's office was sponsored by Democrats. 51%. They have 1/3 of the Texas House, but they passed 51% of all legislation. That should be a little frustrating to us. But I would suggest in small part, or in no small part, is that a reflection of the fact that if you walk the halls of the Capitol, which I tend to not do, I don't like being around any of those people. My weapon, my trigger finger starts to feel happy, and so I feel like I need to go elsewhere. But anyway, probably shouldn't say that once being recorded, but anyway, that's okay.
It's already out there.
I'm on more watch lists than I care to count most days. But I suggest to you, when you walk around the Capitol, what you find is that far too many people like me have said, I don't want to be around those folks, and we go find something else to do. And far too many of the leftists show up. So I would probably dare to venture that on any given day of the legislative session, 51 or 52 or 55 or 60 or some percentage of the human beings that are in the state's capital, which is not the same as elected officials, they're a subset of humanity. The human beings who are at the Capitol are not conservatives. You can throw a rock in any direction and hit someone who is there lobbying for bigger government, for bigger programs, for more spending, for more regulations, for new fees, new revenue sources, and on down the line. So they show up. And what do we know about any contest of any sort? You only have the chance of winning when you show up. And you always fail when you don't show up. So I would suggest that that's in no small part why we have seen big wins at the ballot box, and yet precious few wins in policy reforms. It's because we've done a good job of convincing, our, one-eyed, one-legged girlfriend from high school, to show up and vote on election day, or to, vote early, or to mail in a ballot. We made it all very easy. But then we haven't similarly encouraged her and our neighbors and our family and our friends and whoever else to show up in the government. That we're showing up at the ballot box, but we're not showing up for the government. I'd suggest if we're going to see reforms this session, to JoAnn's point, you and I have got to show up a lot more regularly. And it's uncomfortable. It's not fun. Austin is a weird place. They exalt in that. But you and I have got to be there because the other team is showing up. Our little coalition, the Life, Liberty, and Property Coalition, is going to try to help with that. Because quite frankly, when you show up, everybody knows Andy Griffith. There's a fantastic skit that Andy Griffith did years ago, or a monologue called, "And They Called It Football." I encourage you to go on YouTube and find "And They Called It Football." And it's Andy Griffith in his best, Appalachia hillbilly persona, describing coming across a football game. And it's just the funniest thing you ever see, because he didn't know the rules and all that, so he didn't know what he was watching, and the way he described it is great. Well, that's a lot of the way the legislative process is to human beings. You show up and you try to pay attention to what's happening on the floor of the House, the Senate. You go into committees, and it's like you know all the words, but none of them make sense. They're in the wrong order. They have different definitions. So what our little coalition is doing, we're calling it the First Amendment Tuesdays. First Amendment Tuesdays. Every Tuesday during the legislative session, we're going to have an opportunity for citizens to come in, learn about the legislative process, spend 20 or 30 minutes getting a briefing on the rules, on the procedures of the Texas legislature, get a briefing on the actual legislation that's being heard that week, and give you an idea of what committees are relevant to which issues, and then find out what questions you have, what issues you're going to be there, that you're caring about that week, so we can help point you in the right direction. Every Tuesday, First Amendment Tuesdays. Now, when you say First Amendment, of course, we think dirty words on television, we think, dirty magazines being sold at the Walmart, whatever. No, it's not what the Founding Fathers meant. The Founding Fathers, they talked about First Amendment, of course they were talking about freedom to speak politically, to print politically, to gather politically, to worship, to assemble, to petition, all those things, what they were discussing in the First Amendment. And so we want to empower folks to be more effective in their communications with their elected officials in the real-time act of governing, to learn the rules, to understand the procedures of the Texas legislature. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to our website, empowertexans.com, And we will sign up there and we'll send you information. Also, Grassroots will get information out to you. And if you're on the Life Living Property Tour list, you'll get information from there, and Facebook and Twitter and all those different ways. We'll make sure folks know the locations and the times as we get closer to the session. But no process or procedure of the day in and day out of the legislative session is more important than the very first vote on the very first day of the legislative session. The very first vote of the very first day of the legislative session will be the vote on leadership of the Texas House of Representatives. That's going to be the most important vote your legislator takes. Now, there are a good number of conservatives who are saying, oh, I'm going to be a conservative all session long. But for the first vote, I'm going to vote with the Democrats. That's their one. That's what they're saying. Now, they're not actually saying exactly that way. That's what they're saying. Who are saying they want to just go ahead and keep Joe Strauss as the Speaker of the House. Joe Strauss, who was put in place by the Democrats, who gets his power from the Democrats. The people who lost 10 more counties, who couldn't get a statewide candidate over 39%. And yet, there are a good number of Republicans who think that they need to go along with Joe Strauss as Speaker of the House because, well, that's who the Democrats want. In my mind, that's a reason to be against him. If the Democrats tell us that they are for motherhood and apple pie, I'm going to question those two things. And I would suggest that we should do likewise politically and demand that our state House members do likewise. That first vote of the legislative session, if they keep Joe Strauss in power, all the other babble that these Republican members want to issue forth about, oh, I'm with you on everything else, our response needs to be, how? How? Because you've stacked the deck against conservative results with your first vote. You have precluded the opportunity for success with the first vote. What we know from the last 3 legislative sessions has been that Joe Strauss appoints committee chairs who kill conservative legislation. That's what they've done. Now, Joe Strauss and the Democrats and the enablers in the Republican Party have benefited up until the first Tuesday of January 2015. They have benefited from having a leftist-friendly state Senate. Oops. The world shifted under their feet. The state Senate, you've now got a strong conservative and Dan Patrick as the lieutenant governor. You've got 6 new conservatives coming into the Texas House. You've got Jane Nelson, a strong conservative, going to be chairing the Senate Finance Committee. Suddenly the world's a very different place on the east side of the Capitol, where the Senate resides. The Senate is going to be a more action-oriented, reform-minded conservative body. So the House isn't going to have that cover. So what has the response been from our friends within the Surrender Caucus? They have said that, well, fortunately, we've got Joe Strauss as Speaker, because Joe Strauss will block their words, those conservatives in the Senate. Jason Villalba, a state rep from Dallas County, told an audience that it was important, in fact, that Joe Strauss remain as Speaker because, and he's a Republican, if I didn't say that, he's a Republican, said it's important to keep Joe Strauss as Speaker because there are going to be all these, his words, slash and burn conservatives in the Texas Senate. Now, after hearing this, I've heard that phrase before. Oh, that's how Nancy Pelosi refers to all Republicans. They're slash and burn. So here is Jason Villalba, a Republican, referring to the state Senate as a bunch of slash and burn conservatives. You know, the stage has been set. They have explained it clearly. The Texas House is going to be the place where conservative reforms go to die. So as you're interacting with state reps, as you're interacting with your state rep and with the neighbors, and you're talking to your friends and your family and your one-eyed, one-legged girlfriends from high school and all of those people, make sure they know not to allow their state rep to get away with saying, well, Joe Strauss will be different this time. Joe Strauss, he really heard the message of the election this time. You know, I'm all about giving people second chances. My patience gets a little tried on the third and fourth chance, and that's where we are. In the past, we have not had a candidate who has been willing to challenge Strauss to the floor of the Texas House, either willing or able to do so. Scott Turner, young state rep from Collin and Rockwell counties, has said he's absolutely going to take it all the way to the floor of the Texas House. And I think that is a vote that you need to be watching very carefully. That's a vote you need to make sure your friends and your family and everyone else out around the state, when they're talking to those areas, know they need to communicate. I'm watching very carefully that vote, because it's going to be a vote. What's been very fascinating now to listen to, after Mr. Turner has been saying this all around the state, I've heard him speak 4 or 5 times, and he references there's going to be a vote. He keeps saying it, his supporters keep saying there's going to be a vote. Now we're starting to hear a very troubling tactical maneuver being discussed by the supporters of Joe Strauss. Actually, two different maneuvers. And both of them have the aroma of a good idea, but I would suggest it's aroma of something else. The first maneuver they're discussing is, well, we should just have a caucus vote. We should have a caucus vote. And, you know, some go, oh yeah, I'll let the caucus decide. The Republican caucus. Problem with the Republican caucus is twofold. Number one, it's not legally binding. There's no requirement that what happens in the caucus translates into a vote on the floor of the legislature. Part of that is, the reason for that is because the caucus votes are private. It's not the Republican caucus and Democratic caucus are not government organizations. They can gather in caucus and they can do all sorts of things, and you and I aren't allowed in to watch, so that we can't see who voted how. It's all done in secret. All right, down to secret ballots in the caucus, so we don't really know who voted how. So they can come home and lie to us. Now, I saw this in full force several years ago when Ken Paxton made a very short-term, made the decision kind of on the fly to challenge Strauss for speaker. Everyone said, oh, you got to do it in caucus, got to do it in caucus. And so, okay, no one knew better at the time. There'd never been this kind of challenge before. Goes into caucus, and 30 members, by all accounts, all sides say, 30 members said they supported Ken Paxton for speaker. I have since heard 50 members of that legislature say they were among the 30 who stood. Now, look, I'm an Aggie, but even I get 50 and 30 are two different numbers. Methinks 20 are lying. But when they do things in secret, they can lie to us. They can tell us whatever we want to hear, and we have no way to stop it. So that's the first idea. So let's go to caucus. Let's do it in caucus. The other idea that's being floated is, well, let's just avoid, don't mess with the caucus. Let's just have a secret vote on the floor of the Texas House. Hand out little pieces of paper, and everyone, circle the name and fold up the piece of paper 6 ways and drop it in a hat and shake up the hat and stir it up, and that way no one knows what I voted for. JoAnn, that's a great idea, because this way there's no intimidation possible. That's a great idea. So maybe, since you don't want the intimidation that comes from voting for speaker with a secret ballot, maybe a similarly good idea would be to have a secret vote for, say, a tax increase, because you wouldn't want the intimidation that come from the lobby if you voted against a tax increase, right? Or maybe we should have a secret vote for eminent domain. You know, to go through and tell your county commissioner, we'll set this precedent to your county commissioners, your city council, school board, they can start taking property without having to put their name on a ballot, without having to be held accountable for it. That's a good idea, isn't it? These are the ideas these, jackanapes are seriously discussing. They're seriously putting these forward as a way to avoid accountability. Now, I would suggest to you that you and I should be diligent in calling out absolutely not to either one of those. Because quite frankly, there are servants, and they need to remember that. And the nice thing about hiring a servant instead of appointing a ruler about hiring a servant is it's kind of hiring an employee in your business. You have the constant opportunity for accountability. And I'll be crass and direct, there actually should be intimidation involved when it comes to the picking of legislative leadership. There should absolutely be some concern about retribution involved with the selection of who is the third most important constitutional officer of the Texas House. And it should be coming from the voters. The problem that we face in Austin, whether you're talking about the speakership or you're talking about renaming highways, the problem we constantly run into is that your members of the Texas House are more scared of the Austin lobby than they are of their voters. And that is not healthy. That is not healthy. The old quote from one of the founders, I forget who said it, was when the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When government fears the people, there is liberty. And I think that's probably true. Now I would suggest that the same can be said of good public policy. Bad public policy occurs when our state representatives and state senators fear the lobby more than they fear their voters. The way, though, they will come to fear their voters and do right by the people is if you and I are showing up more regularly. If they see all of us walking the halls, dragging our baseball bats, tire irons, pitchforks, brooms, rolling pins, whatever behind us. When they see us there day in and day out, it's going to be a little more intimidating to them. Right now, all they see are the lobbyists, the grow government crowd. You and I need to be showing up a lot more in the Texas House. Victory will come by our presence as surely in the legislative process as in the election process. The map of Texas is not a stop sign red. The map of Texas says that the people want an aggressive reform agenda. The map of Texas says that 60-some% of our fellow Texans expect real results. I would suggest to you those results will only happen when you and I are showing up loud, early, and often from the first day of the session until its ending. Happy to answer any questions you might have about the process, about